Thank you for choosing the Talking Through the Miraculous podcast. We are here to share stories of God and His blessings. It's that simple. Extraordinary stories of how God loves us and how miracles still happen. Hello, this is BJ. Thank you for choosing Talking Through the Miraculous one more time. It really feels like I've been away for a long time, but it's only been a month. Some things have happened. My sister Erin celebrated a birthday, and I also celebrated a birthday. We both thank God for making it through another year. I want to thank God for having you, the listeners, share stories and get enough stories to release another episode and keep this podcast going another month. This episode, we have 3 stories. The first story is from a returning storyteller named Roberta Robertson.
Hello, everyone. My name is Roberta Robertson, aka Minister Ro. Thank you to the Miraculous podcast team for inviting me back a second time to be a part of this platform and share the miraculous that God is doing in my life. Since my last appearance, I have some exciting news to share. I have written and published my first book, and it went live June 12th of this year. It's titled Every Woman is a Female, but Not Every Female is a Woman. See, I believe that a female is a matter of birth, but a woman is a matter of exposure. It is living through life, through our poor choices, through our hurt, through our self-afflictions, through our tears, through our discomfort, through all of the woundedness that we experience. It is through that process that leads us into discovering who God created and purposed us to be. Yes, it is a Christian-based book. Actually, as the author of the foreword has written, it could easily be a theological written version of how Stella got her groove back. So your presence is requested. If you are a female who is in a dark place, who is in the process of transition from female to godly womanhood, if you are in a cage, if you are bound by addiction, if you are bound by a divorce, if you are bound by your tears at this very moment, I want you to grab this book. I want you to do the work. I want you to cry the tears. I want you to turn the pages. Answer the questions, and I want you to process your feelings through each chapter. Take the notes, and trust me, there are several nuggets in this book. Your highlighter will be busy because I believe that your breakthrough is on the horizon. Your gift is awaiting you. Your future and your purpose is calling you. And I believe if you go through this process and take this journey with me through these chapters, the sacrifice will be worth it. Listen, the difference is this. Throughout the process, you will begin to recognize not just who you are, but whose you are in Christ Jesus and His purpose over your life. And the difference is you will be able to dismantle the mindset of a female and begin to walk in the evolution into womanhood. And the difference is that you will begin to forgive yourself of the transition into the woman God designed you to be. And finally, the difference is that you will be encouraged in this book. You will be comforted. You will be refreshed. You will be healed. You will be transformed within these pages. But listen, there is a caveat here. I was not immediately obedient to God probing and prompting me into writing this book. Listen, I was in a battle with God about my qualifications. I did not believe that I was qualified, but He would not let me rest. I would get up in the morning and I would hear His voice. I would get up in the middle of the night. I would hear His voice. I would take a shower. I would hear His voice. And Holy Spirit was saying to me, He says, your obedience will make room for you. He said, your obedience will make room for the gift. He says, I have already planted in you everything you need to complete this book, to write this book. And silly me, of course, I'm going back and forth with God saying, hey, I don't think this is the gift that you gave me. I don't think that I'm author material. But God had plans. He knew that everything that I needed was in me to write this book. And so here we are 2 years later. I have published this book, and I hope that this book will do exactly what God has promised that it will do. Because believe it or not, this book isn't about me. It's about God getting all of the glory. It's about God using the supernatural of this book to heal many women on every platform. It doesn't matter if you're a young woman or an older woman. I believe that God intends to do just as He said with this book. Listen, if you're interested in taking this process, you can purchase this book on barnesandnoble.com. You can purchase it on authorhouse.com, and you can also get it on amazon.com. I just want to share with you all, if you hear Holy Spirit's voice, if you hear and feel God prompting you and it just won't go away, that is our cue to be obedient to what He is calling us to do. I'm glad that I was obedient. I'm glad that I answered the call, because I have gotten several testimonies. I've gotten several reviews on this book and how it has transformed women in their lives in such a short period. So I am again elated that the Miraculous team allowed me this platform to share what God is doing and the miraculous that He is doing in my life. And I pray and I pray and I pray that this book blesses you. I pray that I have blessed you, and I hope to be back on the Miraculous podcast soon. Have a great, fantastic day.
Thank you for sharing with us again, Miss Roberta. I really appreciate it, and appreciate you and your whole journey in writing this book. I have my copy. You can get yours on Amazon. Once again, the title is Every Woman is a Female, but Not Every Female is a Woman by Roberta Robertson. Our next story will be from my cousin, Carlin. He'll always be my little cousin, but he's a grown man now. Congratulations to him. He just got his master's degree and is doing well with his wife and children. In his story, he's sharing about loss and how God, with his family, helped him get through it.
Hey everybody, this is Carlin Cardale. I want to share a story today. My story is about my father and my firstborn. So on June 7th, 2018, something told me to check my voicemail. I actually never really checked my voicemail on my phone, like never, until it gets like full, and then I gotta go through and erase it. But for some reason, something told me that early morning to check my voicemail at 3:00 in the morning. So I'm checking my voicemail, and basically I'm getting messages and I'm just deleting them. And then finally a message comes from Palm Springs Medical, and it says that this is Carlin Reed. Your father was rushed to the emergency room and he's in the ICU now. You need to get here as soon as possible. As soon as I heard that, I called the social worker to the hospital, and she basically told me that my dad wasn't conscious and he was in the ICU and I needed to get there fast. I got in my car. The lady had told me that my dad had a stroke. I get in my car. I take off to California. The crazy thing about this whole situation was that my wife was due any day with my first child. I had to make a decision to take this risk to drive to California right now or miss my son being born. So, it's my father, my wife. We chopped it up real quick. She's like, no, you need to get out there with your dad. So I took off. I called my sister and my mom. They were at the hospital already. It took me 4 hours to get there. On my way there, talked to my cousin Sam. He prayed for me. I talked to my cousin Byron, and I talked to my auntie Debbie, and they all, basically said a prayer and told me if I need anything to hit them up or if they needed to meet me at the hospital. Basically, when I got to Indio, I think it was. The doctor hit me up, and this is when I kind of knew it was a bad situation because he was like, "Where you at? You really need to hurry up and get here." I was like, "Oh man," because I'm in a panic now, so it was like the worst stress I ever had in my life because I'm worried about my dad, and I know it's a bad situation, and then I'm worried about my wife also because she's pregnant at home by herself, could have the baby anytime. I finally get to the hospital, and I'm like nervous to walk into the situation because I know it's a bad situation. So as I walked through the door where my dad was at in the ICU, they have him hooked up to all of these machines. And so I break down, I just start crying. My mom and my sister were there. My sister, she gave me a hug. My mom, she gave me a hug. And after I was able to get myself together, the doctor told me they needed to talk to me. So they took me to this little room. It was like 3 doctors in there. And then my mom and my sister came and they told me that I was power of attorney of all my dad's medical decisions. The crazy thing about that is I never knew that, but they told me that your dad suffered an aneurysm that traveled to the back of his head and basically like popped, causing him to have a stroke. And they said upon arrival, he was already dead, but they got his heart back started up. And so they got him to the hospital. And then, the doctor told me your dad has a strong heart and he seemed like he was in good health, but they don't know if he suffered like a fall, like a week before or something and just didn't get medical attention on it or something, which caused the aneurysm. To this day, I don't know what happened. But they told me, we can keep your dad on this machine, but there's really not much that we can do for him because he's brain dead already. So I had to make the decision to take him off the machine. So I told him I didn't want him to suffer. So, I wanted him to get off the machine. They told me, well, maybe if your dad, he might live a little longer, but he's never going to be the same. But as soon as we take the machine off, he might just pass away right away. Me and my sister, we prayed on him and we told him to take him off the machine. I already knew his vitals, his blood pressure and stuff started to rise quickly. And when we were praying on him, he started to cry. And we were like, oh man. So we know that he heard what we were saying. It had to be about 45 seconds. He kind of rose up a little bit and took his last breath. And that was it. We sat there with him and talked. My mom and my sister, they finally left. And I sat there with him a little bit longer, man, for a couple of hours. And then told him I had to go. Seeing him in that bed lifeless was probably the worst thing ever in life, man. I would never wish it on anybody to see a parent like that. I feel bad because my dad, he was so happy that I was finally about to have my first child at 40 years old. I waited so long to have my first child. He was so happy for me, man. My last conversation with him, he was asking me, hey, man, you think LeBron James is going to go to the Lakers? I was like, I don't know, Dad. But he had told me, he's like, man, I'm so glad that you're having a son, man. It's going to be the best thing. It upset me that he wasn't able to meet my son. But that night when I drove home, I was so messed up in the head from everything that I had just witnessed. I actually got pulled over by the police because I guess I was swerving. The police, they took me out the car and asked me, was I drinking? I told him no. I said, I just lost my father, man. He's like, what? I was like, yeah, I'm just trying to find my way back to the freeway and get back on the freeway, man. He's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah. So that night, the cop led me back to the freeway. I know that was God. So I got back home and I remember that next morning waking up and feeling like I had got jumped basically by a whole bunch of people. My body was in so much pain from the hurt from losing my dad. So now I was back home, but I know I had to plan the funeral for my father. I was hoping that I could get this funeral done without my wife going into labor. The funeral was June 15th, 2018. My father-in-law, my brother-in-law, they drove me out there. I was going to take an airplane, but I felt like I had too much anxiety, so I didn't want to get on the airplane. We got out there, watched him get buried, and I didn't even get to go to the repast because I wanted to make it back just in case my wife went into labor. So I buried my dad on June 15th and had my first kid on June 19th. I remember my dad loved birds, man. Every house that my dad stayed in, he would build pigeon coops and put white pigeons in there. He loved birds. So it's crazy that when my baby was born, the nurse was like, oh, look at that white pigeon on the window. And me and my wife looked and we both started crying because I know that was my dad, man. Right when my wife was pushing the baby out, the bird was sitting right there at the window, looking in the window. After she pushed the baby out, the bird flew away. It was like, wow, man. Had my healthy son, named him Camille Curtis Cardale. It seems like my dad's been reincarnated into him because they have the same personality, same facial expressions. the whole 9 yards, man. So God works in mysterious ways, man. It was something bad that was happening in my life got turned to something very positive at the same time. So I had to learn to live without my best friend, which was my father. But then I had a new best friend, which is my son. Life is weird like that sometimes, but even when I went where my dad was staying at, I went and I got all his stuff. It was crazy. He had like a little jumpsuit for my son that he had bought. And it was just like, man, it made me cry, man. I was like, wow, man. The situation that I got is that God took me through a roller coaster of, I'm not going to say negativity, but something that made me so strong now, because I feel like these things in life, they make us strong, and it made me have to be strong because I couldn't be weak and just quit because I have my son coming. So I had to definitely be strong for my son and my wife. That's my story, man. Everything is going good now. I have 3 beautiful children. My wife, she's been so supportive. She's the best mother, and life is just good. I know my dad is up there. He's an angel now, and I know he works in mysterious ways. Things happen in my life sometimes. I'm just like, I know that's my pops, man. Everybody keep it positive and stay blessed.
Thank you, Carlin, for sharing and being so vulnerable. I was there during that time. I did attend the services. I didn't realize all that you went through at that time, and I wish I would have been there more for you, but you know I love you, and thank you for sharing that with us. Our last story is from Miss Krystal. Miss Krystal used the website miraculouspodcast.com to share her story. She's talking about her journey through cancer and how God lifts her up with the help of friends and family.
My name is Krystal Whitaker. Last year, around this time, I received my official diagnosis for breast cancer. I was diagnosed stage 3 invasive ductal carcinoma, triple positive. Here I am a year after diagnosis, just taken away by how amazing God has been to me. I remember praying to Him and telling Him, God, if you walk with me through this, I'll be as transparent as possible. I'll spread the word. I'll spread awareness. I'll do whatever it is that you ask of me. God, I just want you to walk with me. And after praying that prayer, so many things have happened, from me being led in the direction to have the correct doctors, to me being asked to share my story online via interview for the hospital, me having a photo shoot with the hospital, me meeting wonderful people from the foundation at the hospital, from just an outpour of love and support. God has really shown up and shown out. I remember being on TCHP chemotherapy. After my 4th treatment, I could barely walk. My husband and my mom took care of me and made sure that I was okay. When I had surgery, I really had to have people there to take care of me. I couldn't go to the restroom by myself. I couldn't bathe by myself. And it's crazy because I realized in those times, that's when God shows you. We take so much for granted. When I was healthy, I didn't realize how valuable my lungs were. But when I found myself on chemo and I couldn't breathe, I realized that my lungs are valuable and that I shouldn't take that for granted. When I was unable to walk, I realized how wonderful it was to have your muscles and your limbs completely intact and mobile. All of those things are a blessing. And now that I'm able to do them again, I'm like, God, I thank you that I'm able to walk. Even though I'm not back at 100% because I'm still on chemotherapy, I remember what God brought me from. And I'm appreciative of where I am now. God really touched so many hearts around me. He allowed me to not even worry about my finances. I know I used to always work a lot and try to make sure that everything was taken care of. The whole time I was out on leave, I didn't have to worry about anything. God really made a way. He touched people's hearts, and I would be randomly at home wondering about, a bill or how am I going to get this for my child? And I would get a Zelle direct deposit in my account. And I'm like, God, thank you. Because at that moment, you touched somebody's heart. And you put it in motion for them to bless me and my family. And I know it was nothing but God. I just think about now. I'm still in this fight and I'm still working toward being better, but I have conversations with certain people and it's like, God, I thank you because it's a message that I needed. I look at what I do at this point as me trying to show people what God can do, what he is capable of doing. I've met a lot of women from all over the world. I have sisters in Canada. I have sisters in Japan. Like, I've talked to women all over the world, and it's not me trying to just have meaningless conversations because we share similar life experiences, but it's more so me honoring what I told God I would do, as in be transparent. I'll get online sometimes, me and some of my sisters, and I call them my sisters because we're all battling a similar battle, and we all kind of learn that a lot of us have gone through similar things throughout our journeys, and it's crazy because it makes us not feel like we tripping. It's not a normal thing, but it's okay, I experienced that too. We share our testimonies. I'm just thankful for their transparency and the voice that God has given them to want to make a difference. People just don't know. Like, life is amazing. We don't realize it until tragedy happens, and that's the sad part about it. I really feel like a lot of times we go through life and we're careless until reality hits, or, something happens to us. And even if it's to somebody close to you, my aunt, she passed away from stage 4 colon cancer. It's like I went through the emotional thing, processing that and being there for her on her last days. And I never forgot. I thought about her often. I don't know. It's definitely different when you're going through it. We're battling 2 different types of cancer, but I think whenever you really realize that cancer is cancer, that's something that nobody really wants to go through. Generally, we never know what the outcome is going to be. And that's with everyday life. I try to tell myself now that I want to surround myself by positive people. I want to be around influential people, people who know God and who isn't afraid to talk about God. I have some very strong conversations with my boss, and I don't think she realizes how impactful it is to hear just the positive energy that flows from her experiences with life. Sometimes we go through life and we feel like, people that we see that appear to be just all put together. We don't think about what these people went through to be put together. We don't take that into accountability. Okay, well, maybe they've been through something in their life and God used that as an opportunity to transform them. And I feel like right now for me, that's what I'm in. I'm in a season of transformation. I feel like God is using this opportunity to show me how short life is and how strong I am, that I can do anything that I put my mind and my heart to. And I'm just here for the journey, and I'm excited about the journey. I'm thankful that he's kept me because I've witnessed some of my sisters fall. I'm just like, God, I thank you every day. I don't go to God with a laundry list of what I want. I go to God with a list of thank you for. He's transformed my heart. He's transformed my mind. I'm more patient. I'm more understanding. I'm more attentive to other people's needs, more understanding, because now I know you never know what somebody is going through. I can recall at the beginning of my journey, I said I wasn't going to tell anybody. I'm going to deal with this on my own. And I would come to work and my coworker, she would tell me, girl, what's wrong with you? You acting funny. And I would be like, nothing, I'm good. As soon as she walked off, I would cry because it's like I really wanted to tell her, but I was in a place where I hadn't processed. I hadn't accepted. Just one day after carrying that load and God sending people my way to have the same conversation, I was like, okay, God, I hear you. And it's crazy because I talked to my pastor and he said, it's the process, the journey. It's hard. It's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy. And he reminded me, this is your opportunity to show people how good God is. And then I had a conversation with one of the deacons. He called me. I hadn't been to church in a while because of my job. I wasn't able to go to church on Sundays. I had to work. He tells me, use your voice. Allow other people to see God through you. And then I had a conversation with my mom. And my mom was like, girl, you always holding stuff in. You never want to put it out there. You'll never know how other people will react. You'll never know how nice and how caring the world is if you don't give them the opportunity to be there. My mom, she always tell me I'm, and I quote, a private person or everything's a secret. But, she never just really came out and told me like, girl, you need to talk. And that's what I felt like she was saying. But more so, I felt like that's the message that God wanted me to tell people. But once I did that, it felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. Once I prayed to God and I told him, I'm giving it to you. And I promise I'll be as transparent as possible. I honored that. And he's just been walking with me, and I slowed down. And I see signs. I see just things that I know it's not me and my own intuition. It's nothing but God. And I'm thankful. And I'm just overfilled with joy, and I'm excited for what God is going to do in my life, because I feel like he's brought me this far for a reason. I feel like I'm right at the end of my breakthrough. I think that it's here, and it's just a process of getting to a process of being strong enough to endure whatever it is that he is going to bless me with later. And I know this 3 recordings, it really does no justice to my journey, because there's so many things that I want to share. And, these recordings, they're amazing, but I get excited when I'm talking about it, and I know I rumble because I'm still on chemo and it affects my thought process. But I want to say thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for this platform that you created to allow people to share their stories and just show how good God is, because it's a miracle. It's definitely a blessing to hear and to see the way that God works in other people's lives. I feel wholeheartedly like we all go through something. It may not be the same thing, but it's refreshing to know that other people see signs and they definitely recognize God's grace and mercy. And I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Krystal. I'm honored to receive your story. I'd like to be able to meet you one day. Please call us back. Please leave another story when you are fully healed. We will keep you in our prayers, and you keep us posted. Thank you so much. Well, that brings us to the end of another episode. Thank you once again for tuning into Talking Through the Miraculous. Thanks again for listening. If you love what we do, please like, review, and share the show. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, or directly on our website, miraculouspodcast.com. Today's episode and all music was produced by B Black. Special thanks to the Talking Through the Miraculous team for all of their hard work. We'd like to start a community of people discussing their God experiences. So please follow Talking Through the Miraculous on Facebook or follow us on Instagram at Talking Miraculous. On our website, miraculouspodcast.com, you can find out more about the podcast, contact us with any questions, or submit your own story. You can also share a story via our voicemail at 909-491-3435. That's 909-491-3435. There is a 3-minute limit, but leave as many messages as you need. Finally, if you'd like to become an ongoing supporter of what we do, you can donate to us at cash.app/miraculouspodcast. Any amount can go a long way to support us in our vision. Thanks again, and remember, miracles still happen.